the trees they thought nobody cared about. I spent nearly 20 years building a private pine forest that most people never even knew existed. Then one morning I found bright orange markings painted across dozens of my trees. At first I thought it was a mistake. By sunset, I discovered someone had already approved a logging project. The problem? The person who approved it didn't own a single inch of the land. My name is Ethan Walker. My grandfather bought the property in the 1960s. Over the years, my family protected every acre. We planted new trees, maintained trails, and documented everything. To most people, it looked like a forest. To me, it was family history. One cold morning, while walking a trail near the northern boundary, I noticed orange paint on a pine tree. Then another, and another. Soon I realized dozens of trees had been marked. A wooden sign nearby made my stomach drop. Pine Valley Community Improvement Project. Community project? This wasn't community property. It was mine. That evening, I checked countyrecords.com. What I found didn't make sense. The HOA president, Linda Graves, had approved a timber management plan that included my forest. At first, I assumed it had to be an error, but when I attended the next HOA meeting, Linda smiled confidently and said, "Everything has already been approved." The room nodded. Then I placed my property deed on the table. The smiles disappeared, and for the first time, Linda looked worried. What I didn't know yet was that someone had already signed contracts worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Something didn't add up. The next morning, I called the logging company. The manager sounded surprised. According to their records, the HOA controlled the forest area. I emailed my deed and survey documents. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. "Mr. Walker, we have a serious problem." He forwarded the paperwork they received. The survey map looked wrong immediately. Boundary lines had been moved. Property labels had been changed. And somehow, my private land appeared inside HOA property limits. I contacted a property attorney. Within hours, he found multiple inconsistencies, incorrect legal descriptions, missing authorization forms, references to property parcels that didn't even exist. Then he found something worse. A signature approving the project had supposedly been submitted months earlier. The problem? The person listed had been dead for nearly 2 years. My attorney leaned back and said, "Ethan, this is no longer a property dispute. It's potentially fraud." Meanwhile, Linda continued telling residents the project would improve safety. She had no idea investigators were already reviewing every document she submitted. The investigation. 3 days later, all logging operations stopped. No equipment entered the forest. No trees were touched. Linda was furious. She sent emails accusing me of delaying an important community project. But every email created more evidence. Investigators interviewed HOA board members. Most admitted they never reviewed ownership records. They simply trusted Linda. Then investigators followed the money. That's when things became interesting. The proposed timber sale was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Residents assumed the money would improve community facilities, but investigators couldn't find a clear financial plan. No budget, no allocation records, no explanation. Questions spread quickly throughout the neighborhood. Where was the money going? Then a deputy called me. His voice sounded serious. "Mr. Walker, we need you at the next HOA meeting." I asked why. There was a pause. Then he replied, "Because we're about to ask some very difficult questions." The meeting everyone remembered. The meeting room was packed. Every seat was taken. Residents lined the walls. Linda entered confidently. She still believed she could explain everything away. Then 2 investigators walked into the room. The conversation stopped immediately. Property records appeared on a projector screen, then survey maps, then copies of submitted documents. People gasped. Several board members looked completely shocked. Linda blamed consultants, then contractors. Then county staff, that every major document traced back to her office. One board member stood up. Linda, did you verify ownership before approving this project? Silence. Another resident asked where the timber money was supposed to go. More silence. For years, Linda always had an answer. That night, she had none. Then the lead investigator stood up. He announced an active fraud investigation. The room exploded with questions. Residents demanded explanations. Board members demanded answers. Linda's face turned pale. Her career as HOA president ended that night, but her biggest problems were still ahead. Karma arrives. 1 week later, deputies arrived at Linda's house. By then, the investigation had uncovered enough evidence to move forward. The news spread across the community within hours. Residents were stunned. The HOA board removed Linda from her position immediately. The logging contract was cancelled. Every marked tree remained standing. Months later, new review procedures were introduced. Board members received additional training. Ownership verification became mandatory before any future projects. As for me, the following spring I walked through the forest again. Sunlight filtered through the same pine trees my grandfather once cared for. The trails remained untouched. The forest remained protected. As I stood there, I realized something. Linda thought authority gave her control. She believed nobody would challenge her decisions. She assumed private property was just another HOA project. She was wrong, because facts matter, property rights matter, and eventually, every abuse of power reaches a deadline. Sometimes karma takes years. Sometimes it arrives before the first tree is cut. Thank you for watching Vanessa's HOA. If you enjoyed this story, comment, protect property rights, and subscribe for more HOA battles, neighborhood drama, and satisfying karma stories.